Hey guys, this is Brett Young, Taylor Young, and Rod Erb, and you're tuned in to the Be Extraordinary podcast with Erb and Young. Real conversations about business, leadership, and personal development. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Be Extraordinary podcast. We have an unbelievable guest here today. Zack, thank you for being on the show, man. Just got off the plane.
Yeah, man.
You know, we're a couple hours fresh here.
Feeling good. I mean, the Florida sun gets you right back into it. So
Unbelievable.
I won't see the sun again until March.
Just say it's a little different weather than Boston.
This is fine.
That's incredible, man. Well, thank you for being here. You know, sometimes we do these virtual and they're just not the same. So the fact that you would jump on a plane and come down here, man, it just means the world to the three of us. We've had the privilege of developing a friendship and a relationship over the last, couple weeks, couple months. I mean, I know I reached out to you on LinkedIn. I had just a tremendous amount of respect for you and your partner of what you've achieved in our industry and what you've done. So I don't even know what that LinkedIn message was, but I think it was like, hey man, we should know each other. You know, what would it take to get 5 minutes of your time? I think. And man, you've been so gracious, and every time we have an exchange, it's so rich. And the fact that we've all had opportunities to just exchange such cool thoughts, and even in the short amount of time, just the value that you brought the three of us as partners has been tremendous. So the fact that we can get on a podcast and maybe share some of that today with the listeners is really special.
Dude, I built my career off DMs, so I'm down with it. If I receive one, I reply. Even if it's a salesy DM on LinkedIn where like I think it's not worth my time at all, I'll still give them a reply. And I'm not going to coach them through what I think they should do next, but I'll still give them a reply. And I always end it with like, I appreciate you. I don't usually say good try though, because most times it's just a bot per se, but I give it an appreciate you. But what I find so interesting about the DM, not to go off topic here, is that if I give a little bit of not for me, there's never once a attempt back. They get one no and stop. And I find that criminal.
Man, that's just like a perfect segue to what we're going to chat about today, because to me, that's just influence, persistence. It's just sales, man, right? Just that's it. It's almost like you just once you start to see it, you see it everywhere, right?
It's upsetting because if you get a no on the phone or a no in person, I'm not saying that you have to be the slickest person and come back with this amazing line, but there should be some kind of clarifying question as to why. There should be some kind of clarifying question as to like, if it were free, would you do it? And I'm just curious by that answer, genuinely. If it was free, would you do it? And if the answer is yes, you're still in the conversation. If the answer is no, then you got a lot more to learn about yourself. But I find that interesting.
That's great. Well, a couple things before we get into it today, but I mean, personally, I know the three of us have been enthralled with just how you guys scaled your agency and just did such ridiculous volume. I think the stat that was thrown out there that I read online and that you later confirmed, I think you guys were capturing 7% of all the real estate closings that were happening in Maryland on the
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, I'm sorry.
I wish it was Maryland too.
Yeah. But. So yeah, right. But 7% of the closings that were happening in the entire state. I mean, that's just that's accurate.
That's accurate. Yeah. So how we did it, and I'll kind of go into a little bit how we found our niche, but how we developed that stat is important. So there are around 6 or 7 million, maybe 8 million people in Mass. I'm not sure, but you can relate this to Florida too. It's like, how are you relevant or valuable to that many people? It's just, you're not LeBron James. I don't know how you can be relevant to that many people. You can't be, right? So we looked at it and was like, okay, how do you develop a niche? We started to think about that. I'll get into how we found ours, but when we backed into home closings, we then did the data as to, in a great market, how many homes are sold, and in a recession, how many homes are sold. And in Massachusetts, in a recession, 45,000-ish homes are sold. In a booming market, it's like 55 to 60,000. So we're like, wow, that's pretty tight. Like that. So in the worst of all markets, we'll be fine. And then what we did was each year we tracked how many homes were sold and how many referrals we got. So that was a really easy percentage to calculate.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've been around not only your own producers, some producers maybe they didn't make it, and now you have a consulting firm that you're going into agencies all across the country and teaching them how to, revive, revamp, or enthrall what you currently have to get more sales velocity out of the staff and out of the team that you currently have. And so you have such a great eye line on the individual producer that most people don't have. Not only have you been a practitioner because you've done it at the highest level, but now you're teaching other people to do it at a high level. And so the mastery involved with just your line of sight is something that I know when we talk about these podcasts, I know that's one of the things that we really wanted to hit on. So if you're listening to this right now, hopefully you'll leave this podcast with some things that you can apply. But before we do that, I wanted to do what was the number one producing producer in your agency, just to give context to the listener. What was on average, what were they writing per year?
Yeah, so to clarify, it's inside producer at the firms we had.
Sure.
Now, we did have a couple outside producers per se, but an inside producer at our firm would try to generate between like 1 to 1.75 million in premium per year. Okay. And that would be almost zero referrals that they generated. It would be the referrals kind of coming in. And that for us was a good delta. Now, if they did 500 to 700,000, we'd work with them to try to get them up because it wasn't a lack of leads. It was probably a closing percentage. And so that's really what we were going for. We thought anything above that for an inside producer, they might be able to get to, but the quality of them would kind of come down a little bit. Wow. So we knew if we were generating anything above 1.5 million in premium from a producer, we had to keep going, fill more producers, shall we say.
Wow.
Yeah. How many leads were they working? And these are home closings. These aren't generic internet leads. These are closings that are going to happen in the community in the greater Mass area.
Yeah.
Right? So how many were you delivering to each producer?
Yeah, that's a good point to talk about for a second. Never paid for a lead in my life. Never used I used an internet lead at Liberty Mutual, I guess, but I've never got internet leads or done that realm. I think it can be done in a lot of different ways, but if you're listening and that's what you want to get out of me, you got the wrong guy. I can't help you with that. Good luck. But for me, it was always warm leads coming via email, call this person, what have you. So that's one part. We tried to get them to get to about a 50% closing ratio on a warm lead. Now, that might sound lower than other agencies. That's fine. That wasn't our secret sauce. I don't think we were the best closers in the world. What we did was we averaged about 2.6 policies per client. So what we looked at is if I was getting 100...
At the sale.
At the sale.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's when you go through, what am I consulting about? If I can help you get more leads, great, but I want you to do more with less. I'd rather you get less leads and close more.
So you're saying that the origination was the home closing, and instead of just selling the home, you were doing 2.6 on the original transaction, the original referral that came.
Yeah,
over.
No follow-up, no you closed 2 months ago. No, good luck. I closed 2 months ago. I'm broke right now. I got 9,000 things going on in my house. I bought this thing. It has shag carpet. I want to redo this stuff. You want to document my auto policy? You can go screw. That's what they think. So we tried to figure out, how do I, when someone says yes, it's so easy to get them to say yes again, right? And so what we looked at it as, I would rather you strike out and miss the sale or then get a home only. Now, if they had a condo or something, they didn't have an auto, whatever. There are cases. But back to the original point, if you got 100 leads and you close 50% of them, technically you're going to have about 126 policies on 100 leads. So how I look at agencies is you should have the amount of leads that you get, you should have that many policies in a year. Or else you're doing something wrong.
That's a cool metric to track, right?
It's easy, right? Yeah. It's pretty simple.
I don't like the number, but it's a cool metric to do. Real fun, Zach. Thank you, man. Really, it's good.
50% closing ratio with that average policies is significant. Because one could argue that if you were going after, 1, 2 policies, whatever it is, that closing ratio is going to go way up.
You could, and I think we did. And then we saw the results of that. And it was just, it's upsetting to see the revenue per client when you look at that. And so when you look at 2+ policies per client, the umbrella policy is $100 or $200. It's not like you get crazy more revenue, but the lifetime value of a client. Now, if I'm servicing that person and I personally have a phone call, which I didn't want to, but if I personally had a phone call for an hour with a client, at least there's some revenue attached. At least I can talk to this person. At least it's not like a monoline condo that's $50 to $75 in revenue. I'm losing money by taking this phone call, even if I like you. So now we're in a totally different realm. So we 4 policies per client presented every single time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah,
Walk us through that process if you don't mind.
Sure. So we tried to phrase it as an education. Now, it wouldn't come off perfect every time, but we tried to, as our inside producers, present it as we're educating you on all forms of risk. Again, I'm not trying to be overly salesy. It's like we believe that if you close on a home, you should be talked to about flood, umbrella, auto, home. And it's your job as a client to say no. It's okay if you say no. It's okay. There are a lot of other fish in the sea, and I'm not for everybody. But we're going to present all forms of risk, and it's your job to say no. Now, clearly that protects you from E&O, which is great. You get every single person says no to flood, fine. It's okay. Like I have it documented. We're good. But I have kids. I believe in umbrellas. I see people driving. I believe in umbrellas. So the bigger thing we tried to do is have our inside sales professionals believe in the need for umbrellas, because you guys know you can't sell what you don't believe in. It's really hard to sell insurance if you don't have insurance. It's just hard. So that's why, like, when you're like 22 years old selling life insurance, I'm like, you got the gift of gab, or like you're gonna be broke.
It's a tough gig.
Yeah, it's hard.
Man, so just so I have, and I can't help myself, because 50%, 7% of all the closings that are happening in an area, I mean, it's only 7 and 8 million people area. I know it's a smaller area, but that's a lot of the market. What was the best year you guys have as far as just households or policy count, or what does that look like objectively?
I'm really glad I don't know. I mean, I don't remember that answer, but all I know is that when we were growing, like those kind of things, like almost it didn't matter so much to me. I know we tracked it. I know we did. It's not like we didn't, but we more looked at just like revenue, and the reason we looked at revenue and profit was so we could add people. Matt and I are, you can find our story so many other places, but we didn't take a lot of money at all, like ever. We were never like broke, but we never like were trying to max out how much money we were taking home. It was a grind forever. And my wife still talks to me about it sometimes, because like sometimes she kicks me and she's like, as a reminder, she's like, we didn't take a week-long vacation ever, until you basically sold the company. Wow. So like it's not that I was like Alex Hermosi here working till 2 or 3 in the morning, but I was fiscally responsible at home. We bought a house, but like we didn't have all the nice things. We really were comfortable, and there were some months we took no pay, and we were really trying to reinvest inside the business. So when things turned around in 2015, 2016, I was on a podcast with Nick Ayers, I think, and it was my very first podcast I ever did, and Matt and I were there, and we casually mentioned how many referrals we were getting, and then my life changed. Then everybody reached out, and I didn't realize we were a unicorn. We had no idea. We thought all of y'all were doing that. We thought everybody was doing pretty well, except for some people we meet. We're like, there's no way that person's doing well. But we thought everyone in insurance was raking. And then we realized, wow, there's a lot more pain in the industry than we thought. And that's when we went into coaching and stuff.
You said average producer, or your goal for the week when you were in production or your teams, was 30 policies a week.
Yeah, give or take. I wanted, so when I did it personally, Matt and I were maxed out around 30 to 35 policies a week. I knew that was the max that we could
Was
do.
that 50% conversion for you? So was that about
Way higher.
16, 17 households?
We were around 90%, 85%, Matt and I. And so when we went
So there wasn't that many leads then?
Oh, no. Because back then we were doing it all. Like so I couldn't generate nearly what I could generate because we were physically producing. So good. Let me reset the stage there. So in like 2010 to 2012, it was probably like Matt and I were writing every single policy, maybe even until 2013. 2014 is when we started to build the inside sales team to actually quote and sell. And that's when closing plummeted. But we looked at it, it was like, all right, we went from like 90 to like 50. Okay, how do we do that?
How do we justify this?
Yeah, so we have to generate more leads. That was in the end-all be-all answer. And then I would love to get that to 70, 75%. And I'm sure some of our reps were higher than others. But I would just, for the round numbers, I would assume we're right around 50.
I love that, though, because there's always multiple levers you can pull, and they always have secondary consequences. And you're always saying, well, which is the lesser of the devil, right? Like which one am I going to be okay with so I can get this upside versus this downside. So I appreciate you being transparent in that, because it's like, hey, look, my closing ratio is this. If I could just maintain this across scale, the answer is it's kind of difficult to do that, right? If you want more volume, sometimes that comes with some secondary consequences, right? But your yield ended up being more because it wasn't capped to 2 people doing it. It was now something that you could scale.
Yeah, and like Matt and I could breathe
a
little bit. Now, we still had stresses. We were still working nonstop, but I could actually have a conversation with him. You know, I feel like if back then when we were doing all the selling, every conversation I had with Matt, we were losing money in theory, because if we're talking to each other, we're making no money. We need to talk to clients. So that was interesting. Like our first office was under the size of this room we're in now. And so we would be on the phone banging away, selling 30 policies each. Like it got loud. And it wasn't.
Do you ever miss that a little bit?
Every day.
Yes, let's go.
Are you kidding me? Like every day. Matt and I was just texting Matt on the way in here, and I was just telling him, I was like, I would go back in a heartbeat.
I was on a coaching call yesterday, and this is not a new thing. You know, we've got a performance coach, and he tells us a lot, but he's like, if you knew that you won the game, would you enjoy it more? And I was like, damn, yeah, I know that. He's like, all right, well, you win, so just enjoy it, because at some point you're going to want to go back and relive this moment. And I'm just laughing because I'm very similar stories on that, and I'm laughing about those times, and they're great now because I get to go relive them in my head. At the time, I'm like, yeah.
Well, think about our high school sports. When you go back, I would go back right now. And I wouldn't even try to be better. I would just do it again. I would fail the same way. But I think like to our journey, and what I think about is it was never for money for me. It was never for money. I'm blessed in that I know that like I can generate money. I just think to myself like that part's solved. I'm fine with that. If I was broke tomorrow, I'd be okay.
Well, for the listener at home, I mean, you guys have one of the most prestigious brands that I've seen in this business for the last decade, and you guys did extremely well, and obviously had built a very successful business. So
I appreciate that. But like what I'm getting at, I guess, is like the end result, like the sale of our company when we sold and we got a pile of money or whatever, however you want to phrase it. Like I didn't like. My wife and I didn't celebrate. Like we didn't go on that trip. We didn't buy that nice car. We didn't do anything. And it's just because it wasn't about that. That wasn't the end goal.
That's cool.
The end goal wasn't to sell the company. The end goal was to be like enjoy life. Like enjoy every day. And I did. I some days it sucked, but like I enjoyed every day, and I still am, so it's not over.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's just how I look at it. Yeah.
I wanted to ask too, when you talk about the mindset of a producer, you mentioned capacity. You go in, and that's a very familiar feeling. We're laughing over here because our first office was half the size of this room too, and it's just messy. Somebody comes in, they're loud. I'm slamming on the desk. I'm telling them I'm on the phone. Right, that gives me such warmth to hear that, and then also such a clue to if you're an agency owner or you're a producer, live below your means and reinvest. Live below your means and reinvest. That's what equals growth in this business. I mean, there's all these different fancy ways, and there's things you can get better. But if you don't do those things, the likelihood of you getting the outcomes that you want to get over a long period of time is very slim, in my opinion. That's what we've experienced, and we've very similar. Reinvest, almost to where our spouses are like, "You guys kidding?" You know, and you're like, "Yeah, right. Like, this is right." Like, are you? So anyway, I want to go to the people that get it versus the people that you saw within your organization. You go, hey, what's the constraint that the limited producer has that's writing 500 to 700 versus the one that's running 1.5 consistently?
That's a great question.
What's the difference between those two cats?
So with outside producing, I'll go there first probably. So when I say outside producing, just for the listener, that to me is you're generating your own leads mainly. I think that person probably looks at it the way I looked at it originally with mortgage brokers, where it's like Brett is my guy. Like he's my mortgage broker. Well, like Brett can only sell that many mortgages. There's only so much. Okay, so then I'm going to go to the next person. Okay, and the next person. But I'm nervous. Like, what if Brett talks to the other mortgage brokers and like they find out that like I'm just some like insurance girl, like going around everywhere, like asking every single person for leads. And so that's like a limited capacity where there's two reasons. Well, there's a lot of reasons, but there's two main reasons I think that happens. One, you tell Brett, like, I'm your guy, you're my guy, and that's how you start this relationship, which is a limited capacity.
Very person dependent.
Yeah.
Relation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Where as opposed to more process. And that's where we really tried to go towards. So I think when you have an abundance mindset, you actually think that you exist to help Brett, the mortgage lender. You actually believe, and so we believe at GNN that like we were in service to, we were helpful. We believe that our process actually made the home buying experience better. I still believe that. I have believed that. And so I believe that if you were in Massachusetts, you were lucky if you had a meeting with us, because I think that your client was better off. And so I think that we just made the process better. Now, with that kind of mindset, I can meet every single person. And then it's into sales, then it's into your other stuff. But you have to start there.
Yeah.
If you don't start there, you hit a ceiling at some point.
You're not trading favors. You're a service to the person.
Yeah.
And so I don't need to feel bad about this being my guy. In theory, I think everyone that is a fit for us should use us because we're the best in the business.
Yeah, and I love that too, because it's almost like if you're new or you're not seasoned, you don't have a process. You start out by Zach's my guy, Rod's my guy, right? But over time, given the different components or variables that you could do to develop a process, technology, CRM, right? Process from raw lead to converted lead, or raw lead to sales meeting to converted lead to multiple lines per policy or per client, right? So I just think that there's a evolution to that, right? And I'm asking that. Are we right in that?
Yeah.
When you're brand new, it's like I'm looking for lenders, I'm looking for real estate agents. It's me and you, and here's why I'm better. But then over time, hopefully, you've got a product that can say or can speak to the fact that we're building a process. We're building a process for volume, for frictionless closings, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, you're spot on. And I want to add to that in a different way. So sometimes when I talk about the in service to, a producer or two will kind of roll their eyes, and maybe not actually to my face. That'd be pretty rude, but maybe like behind the back. And what I would say to that person is you have to be a little curious. And so when I go into any kind of networking meeting or any kind of situation, I just have a lot of questions. I'm just a generally curious person. That's why I've hosted many podcasts in my time. Is I actually like, I wouldn't say I'm an infinite learner or that. I'm just infinitely curious. If someone's vegan, I want to find out why. Maybe I'll try it. I don't know. Like, it doesn't really matter to me so much. So with the networking meetings, you have to approach the other person with curiosity. And so a lot of questions about like, how do you generate business? Tell me about the process of soup to nuts when someone comes in and they apply for a mortgage. Tell me about the process that goes through. And then you have to shut up, because everyone's so quick when they find where they can add their value. That's where they fail, is when they find a hole and Brett's talking to the mortgage broker and all of a sudden they're like, ooh, that's where he should recommend insurance. They dive right in, and you have to pause. Because if you're really curious, and I'm not saying you just pepper them with questions, but you ask them questions you care about, eventually, if you can frame the conversation where Brett can ask you, do you think you can fit in somewhere in here? Then you go. Then you're money. And so that's how I really figured out networking, is infinite curiosity followed by like almost like, I can't believe you asked if I could help. And yes, I could. I have been thinking about that, and here's why I could.
Were there questions that you asked, or were there methods you used to get them to kind of frame that to where you knew they'd ask that question?
Yeah, so I started with personal all the time, just because I'm way more curious about you as a person than you as a business owner. Like if you make a lot of money as a mortgage lender, congratulations. I think it's an arbitrage anyways. It's like, you found a method to do it. Congratulations. But I really don't care so much. I want to network with people that are personally are growing too, in any which way. It doesn't really, if you collect exotic cars, cool, tell me about it. Like, I'm not a car guy, but I'll listen. Like, I'm just always curious about what they do outside of work. The main reason I do this is because I love to gift. I love to show up where it matters to other people. So I can't do that work related, because no matter what I buy for the person, it's semantics. Yeah. So I'll give you an example of how I screwed up first, and then I'll go into another way to gift the right way. So there was this mortgage lender. I won't list his name because he might listen to this, but he is a big wino, and he told me like he loved wine, and he told me all about the bottles he bought and this, that, and the other. And like, not a big wine. I don't drink anymore, and I wasn't a big wine guy then, but I thought I was slick. So I went to a store and I got him like what I thought was a really expensive bottle of wine. I got him like $150 or like $125 bottle of wine, and for me it was like I don't even want to carry this thing. This thing is so expensive, and so like I get there, give it to him, and I'm pumped, right?
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he goes, "Oh, yeah, I've had this before," and like I was just like,
Oh man.
like I talked, and I'm actually friendly with his colleague now, and he told me that like he didn't even drink it. Like it was just like wasn't a big thing. And that for me, like that I didn't even spend $125 on a dinner at that amount. So here I am like big slinging, you know what, coming in with like a ribbon on a bottle. This guy's like, that's Manischewitz. That's like table wine. I don't even care. Yeah. And I'm like, no.
Man.
So that sucked.
I only feel that because I can relate.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. And so that to me, like you want to stay away from watches and wine and stuff that might be expensive to you that they don't really enjoy. So what do you go towards? You go towards anything that you think can make it inside the home. That's where I try to be. I try to go towards that. So with gifting, I say to myself, how do I get out of the office and into the home? Mm-hmm. So I'll just give away some stuff here. So what I like to do is I like to look at the mortgage lender or the referral partner's social profiles. Personally, that's where I live, and you'll find that the harder they work, the more they preach that they're a family man or a family woman, which I think is kind of. I think it's more what they aspire to be than who they are, just personally. And so I said to myself, I was like, all right, well, they're always going to have these great pictures of like Sedona or wherever they recently vacationed. I'll just download that picture, frame it, and send it to them. So I used to do that all the time. This company called FrameBridge, you can get it for $45. I would download pictures, maybe spruce up the quality a little bit so it didn't look like it was directly from Facebook. And I would drop ship it right to them, so they would get it 2 days after our meeting. So 2 days after our meeting, like the wife or the family would receive at their house this like pretty custom framed, like nice frame of a picture they already like because they posted it. You know they like the picture. Wow. And then it just showed up. And I know that sounds really minor and small, but
That's super cool.
That's,
you know, it's different.
That's
Gould.
really cool.
It's interesting.
Not Gould.
We're talking about a picture. We did something similar one time, didn't think anything of it. And then 2 years later, went back to this person's office, and it was still there.
Exactly.
And you were like, oh.
Yeah.
So I totally thought about
what
that
psycho
story.
throws away a picture of the family?
Yeah.
Like, no, they wouldn't do that. But if you give them, like, I don't know, like, this is a really nice coffee mug and stuff like that. There's stuff with your stuff on it, with your swag on it, with your name on it. Never. Avoid that. Avoid it, because
I love that.
Me personally, like I don't have an insurance agency now, so if I got something from you with your stuff on it, sure, I'd rock it. That's fine. But I think as a mortgage lender or as a referral partner, you don't want to go there. You want to avoid your logo at all costs. Yeah. And you don't even want to put their logo on, in my opinion, because they change companies. Yeah. So then they have to throw it out.
It's funny you say that, right? I when I go to a cool golf course, I want a cool hat with the name of the club. I don't want the club logo. There's a cool shirt. Oh, it's got a logo on it.
Yeah.
It's funny. I won't buy a shirt with there's a couple that I have, but you'd know them if you saw them.
You got to up your game then, because there's some good logos out there.
But I'm just saying, for the most part, I'll buy the hat from the club.
Yeah.
I think the hats are cool.
Yeah.
But if I see a cool shirt, I just want it to be the shirt. I
know what you mean. Oh yeah, I agree with you there. I think like to your point, what I like when I go to a golf course or whatever is I like to buy something with like the logo only, not the name. Because I kind of want people who have been there before to be like,
recognize it. Yeah. Well, some of the major clubs in America that you would want to be a guest at one day, they don't even have the name in their logo.
That's smart.
It's just the umbrella, or it's just the.
Because Bay Hill's right over here, isn't it?
It is. It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Amazing.
So go ahead, BY.
No, I just wrote seasoned. That's the belief. I just look at this like beliefs. So seasoned is process. I'm in service to the process of this closing, right? Mm-hmm. Like I have a process to be able to elevate the experience. So therefore, I don't have to be, it doesn't have to be, hey, that's my guy or he's my guy. It's like, no, I can help everyone. I want to help everybody. And you guys can be best friends, buddies, and whatever. I'll let you know that I'm going to see so-and-so right after I walk out of your office and have delivered cookies, right? And there's not that barrier in my mind of like, oh, I can't tell them where I'm going because then they'll know that I'm going to talk to the competition. Yeah. So I love that. And then the amateur is kind of saying like, no, my value is I'm your guy.
Yeah.
My value is I'm exclusive kind of to you. until that moment where you actually start to gain some traction and you go, oh wait, this doesn't necessarily scale. So that's really cool to have the difference. By the way, I've lived both of those.
Me too. Yeah.
And that's so spot on.
Yeah.
And I listen to even some of our newer guys that are right outside this room. I hope they listen to this podcast. It is innately so organic to that's how you start. If you could start without that and hey, listen to this and do it the right way from the beginning, it becomes such an easier transition, because that transition, if you don't do it, comes from like, there's a discomfort because you're almost breaking the verbal contract that you kind of set up with these particular people.
But you also want them to experience a little bit of pain too.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like if you're out there doing that and you're saying like, I'm your guy, I'm your gal, whatever, you're fine. Just like know that you got to change at some point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just kind of like eating cereal every morning for breakfast. It's like, it's okay. Like you're going to be okay, but I wouldn't recommend you do that for long term.
Yeah. We laugh about that, about the cell phone, you know, because some of the newer producers come in there, they're adamant about giving out their cell phone, which is fine. I did that until my phone literally just rang every 5 minutes.
And
so
then
the wee
you
hours
don't answer
of
your
the
cell
night.
phone because
And it was like, okay, this doesn't work anymore. So it was like one of those things. It's like it's fine until it's not.
Yeah.
You know. But so then in the second part of that, I didn't want to jump you, but I wanted to get into that inside sales professional, the person that they're at a desk and they don't have the responsibility of generating those leads, but they have the responsibility of converting at a high rate and rounding out as many pieces of business as they can. What is the delta of the way that they view the craft or approach the craft of the person that, you know, is writing $400,000 or $500,000 a year versus the person who's, you know, pumping it out?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's this old age way of looking at it of like being okay to fail, and I think as an inside sales rep, sometimes you can almost look at it as like, this lead is so precious, I don't want to mess it up per se. And I think that you have to follow your own process, a proven process. So if you're in inside sales, I would push the boss per se, or the leader of the company, however you want to say it, for her or him to give you their best sales objections that they hear and how they want you to accomplish that. So as a, for instance, if you're in leadership and you have inside sales, I think one thing you should do is think of the top 3 objections that you heard, price, locate, whatever, and how you want them to reply. Not an exact script, but an outline. Okay. What's the tonality? Do you acknowledge it, or do you try to push it aside and say that's incorrect? Like, how do you want them to handle it? And if you can give that to your inside sales reps, you've literally given them such a gift. And you already know the objections because you heard them. So that's part one, is leaders need to give them sales objections that they know they're going to hear and how they want them to conquer it. Now from there, I think the inside sales rep really has to look at the prospect as, I'm not going to present stuff to you and say, how does that sound? Or if you'd like this, like, let me know, or, you know, once you check in with someone, I'll be here. I think that the inside sales rep has to treat it a little bit more like a McDonald's, of like, this is the assembly line. You know, your order is going to be ready at XYZ time. Now, why do I say it that way? Because when you present it, part one, you hopefully have all the decision makers on the phone, but this is reality. Probably don't. They're probably going to run it by someone. And if that's the case and you get that feeling, you have to schedule the follow-up time with the person on your time and on their time. So it's not like, hey, at the end of this week, let me know. It's like, I'm going to call you Thursday at 3:00. Does that time work for you? So as an inside sales rep, the only way to elevate your game is to control your time. And so if you control your time and you have your closing calls planned, then you can work on all the other stuff. But I find too many inside sales reps are like, let me know what you think, and I'll be in touch. And they almost are just like, okay, you have the quote, you have the information, my job's done. It's your job to tell me if you want it or not. No, it's the exact opposite, actually. Like, as an inside sales rep, you have to steer the ship.
Drive.
Yeah, and you don't even have to be great at closing. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you have to have a plan. You have to control the time and do it. And I'd rather you actually not be great at sales. I'd rather you actually just be conversational.
Do you find that most prospects, leads, potential customers, they want to be treated that way? They want to be told, you know, here's the quotes that I've worked up. Thursday at 3:00, here's my slot. I'm blocking this in. If you can't do it, fine, get back with me. But, and that's probably a whole sidebar, but it's like, don't you find that or do you find that they want to be told and treated, and that's your authority coming through? That's the posture in what I've engineered for you. And ultimately it's how we're going to get to the solutions that we first talked about in the beginning that you said were important. It's like that driving to me is the missing link in a lot of these cases.
It's the missing link. And I think controlling the conversation on your terms is very important. Going back to your point about the phone, Brett, like otherwise you're at the mercy of whenever they deem it fit. So let's just play this out with me and say they have 2 quotes. One's from Herb, one's from GNN, whatever. And we're about the same price, give or take. Maybe GNN is just slightly lower, lower enough to make them give me a call. They give me a call and it's 3:00 and I decide to skip out that day and coach my son's practice and I'm not going to be there. They try me at 3, they email me at 3:30, 4:00 rolls around and I'm not around. They call you guys, I lose a policy. Why did I lose a policy? Is it really like the client's fault or my fault? Not really. I mean, I'm being a family man, no big deal, but I didn't control my time. Mm-hmm. So the inside sales rep sees that as, like the client is like so demanding and like they want to talk to me. No, they didn't know. They didn't know when to call you. I mean, they have no idea. So they're not doing anything wrong. And so I relate it to kids. It's like kids need a lot of structure about a lot of things, but not playtime. Playtime, go do what you do. But if my son and my daughter, they're 9 and 8, if they woke up without structure, my God, like good luck making the bus. Like good luck. They need to know I have to eat by this time. I have to brush my teeth by this time. I have to pack my bag. I have to they need structure. Clients are not kids. I don't mean it that way, but they need to fit in a structure. They need to understand what the process is like. It's easy.
So good.
Well, that relieves the anxiety of it too, because you think you're doing a disservice because, I'm going to be super flexible and I'm going to let, I'm going to be the convenience guy. Yeah. But then so you think you're doing a service when you're really doing a disservice because now they have angst to go, now I feel like I'm driving.
Yes.
Where, I got a full-time job. I'm just trying to buy insurance.
Yeah.
What's interesting too, personality-wise, because I was thinking about that to come back to being more selling your process and experience versus just selling you. I think also it relieves some of the pressure of having to have this flamboyant, boisterous, attractive, charismatic personality.
Sure.
Where you have, that's just what salespeople look like. They're this big talker, they're the life of the party. When in reality, that's not the case if you can focus on your process and experience. So do you find it the same with inside salespeople where you don't have to be the big personality. You don't have to be the talker, but you can be the process, discipline guy or gal.
Yeah. Most of our inside sales reps were moms.
Were what?
And moms. And I don't mean that they weren't flamboyant. No. But they had a purpose in a life that was way more important.
They're not going to happy hour
insurance.
every night.
No, they're way more important than selling insurance. They had stuff outside they had to do. And why is that important? Well, because they got the job done. Like if someone was working from 9 to 5 and a prospect wanted to chat at 5:15, you can go screw. I'm out of here. I'm probably out of here at 4, let alone 5:15. So they had to figure out how to get the prospect to talk during work hours, which isn't that easy. But it becomes very easy if you give them options during work hours. If you don't give them options during work hours, of course they're going to call you after 5. Of course they're going to email you after 5. And it's kind of unacceptable in today's world for the prospect to email you at 5:30 and you email back at 9 in the morning. It's a little unacceptable. But if you let them know, like, I'm free, you control it, you're fine. It's easy.
So good.
Yeah, and really controlling it broad. It's just, but can do something.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you're controlling the decision-making process, right? It's like, I'm going to, if I have you on the phone, I'm going to engage and say, what's your timeline? Are you ready to make a decision? Here's this, okay, I'm going to frame it to where I'm going to get to a decision. If you told me that, well, no, I'm going to look at 3 other options, perfect. Okay, know that this is not the time frame that you're going to make a decision. I'm going to make sure I create a space where I can control that we're going to be on a phone to make a decision. If you tell me, well, I'm just shopping, like that would be, well, what would you say or do in a situation where someone says, yeah, no, I'm just shopping. I'm just getting pricing.
I love those kind of things. So I didn't hear that as much as I heard something else. Because
feel free.
I heard a lot of times like, let me think about it. And
sure.
What have you.
There you go.
And so one of my favorite lines, I stole this. This is not mine. I stole everything pretty much. Is you say to the person, if they say, let me think about it. Let me give me a second. I would say, okay, what does your thinking process look like? and they pause, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, like, do you like sit on the Adirondack, grab a cigar, and like just sit down, and like, is that like the thinking process? You like look and gaze into the sun and just like really just get deep into insurance? Or like, what is the thinking process? And then naturally they laugh.
Little humor, yeah.
Yeah, naturally they laugh, and they realize there's no thinking process. They have all the information, okay? And so what I say back to them is then a quote from somebody else again is like, if information is what we needed, we'd all be billionaires with six-pack abs. Like, we don't need information. What we need to do is make a decision. And so then they would say something like, if they really were pushing back, they would say something along the lines of, well, I got to check with my wife or my spouse. And then that's a hard one, okay? But you could also say back to them, what do you think they wouldn't like about this? And pause. And then you might get the real objection. The real objection might be, well, they told me to spend $1,000. This is $1,200. Okay, good. Now we're back in the game. Mm-hmm. Now I understand. Or they might say, well, she has a brother-in-law that's in insurance. Okay, now I understand what's going on. But thinking about it or chatting with my spouse is not a real objection. That is a mirage. That's fake. That's crap. If anyone tells you that and you think, no, it's not true. It's not true. There's something else going on.
It's so funny because like when you train on overcoming objections, it's not necessarily overcoming I think people think overcoming means I'm going to figure out that I could say something to change someone's mind. And it's not. What it really means is they're telling you something that doesn't give you the information in order to answer the questions that they have because they just don't want to ask it. So if they said, yeah, well, you're just $300 less expensive than the other option I have, that would help me as a professional of getting to the finish line. But usually that shows up in a different way because I don't have the tools to be able to ask the question to get to the real
It's all the real. That is true because
I love that rebuttal. By the way,
and I'll give it to you again. I'll write it down for you. But the short summary is like you have to stay in the conversation as long as possible. You don't, like, to your point, Brett. You don't have to solve the objection. You have to ask when you get the objection. My challenge to producers is just ask a question back, even if you stumble, if you stutter, if it's just why, if it's like anything, just ask any question back. That whatever you can, just train yourself. When you get an objection, you ask a question back, and you'll be better off long term, even if it's a bad question. So when I was not good at this, I would repeat the question back to them. So, and I'm not saying that's the best way to do it, but they would say, I need to think about it. I'd be like, oh, you need to think about it? Good enough. Good enough, because they'll say it again. They're not going to say, yes, I need to think about it. They're not a psycho. They're going to say something else because they don't want to say something else because I sound like the village idiot. I'm like, you need to think about it? And like they say something back. And that's all I think
about sales in general as a transfer belief, right?
True.
And I think about these objections just being a fact that you as the sales professional haven't transferred. You have the belief over the solution, the option, whatever it is. You just haven't transferred that belief to them. So it's like, I think in terms of these objections, it's like any and I love everything you're saying. I wish I were writing too, but I just think to myself, you've not gotten to a point where now they believe that you have the solution, could be the solution, whatever that may be. So it resonates with some things we've talked about quite a bit about just transferring the belief.
Yeah, and to that point, I would argue that most of the times you're getting objections is because you're dominating the conversation a little bit too much. And so I think that if you let the person talk, even 50-50, the gold standard is they talk 70, you talk 30, but we're in sales. That's not logical. I think it's just, if it's an even conversation, you'll get less objections. And the way you can look at this is when you chat with your wife or your spouse at home, if you chat a lot more than
80-20.
Yeah, you're in for an objection kind of night, if you know what I mean. Whereas if it's like a little bit 50-50, you're at least playing ball. You're at least like in the game here.
That's a good tip.
Really good tip.
Yeah, well, all sports players, like, you watch a basketball game, you see a point guard just dribble the heck out of the ball.
Kill it.
And yeah, it absolutely kills the flow. Yeah. I don't even care if you score. Sure. It kills the flow. And actually, the worst thing is if you do score.
You're going to do it again.
Then you have belief, right? Yeah. And so it's with sales, every once in a while, you'll get a producer who, like, has a great day. Maybe the caffeine to water ratio is perfect, and they're just chomping down the bit, and they nail that sale. It's the worst thing that could happen.
Wow, I love that.
It's the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, what got me the sale is how slick I talk.
Absolutely.
My presentation is what won me the business.
Wow.
Not I found what the need was, and I just
Yeah.
Or as you said
Decided,
earlier,
yeah.
your process, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think
Can
about
I-
I think about that process. It's like if it's just let me be slick, let me be charismatic, let me spit the Queen's English or however that thing goes. It's like and it works.
Yeah.
And then to think that I can do that again, it's like versus I'm reading the notes, versus I'm just going to follow the same process.
Yeah.
It's like we want simple well because one is not duplicatable and one is. I wanted you to speak to pace. You mentioned the moms, which I love. It's almost like, what's the thing? We use our times in the constraint that we have it. So
Sure.
if you have something to get done, you need to get it done. You get it done within that constraint. You're like, wow, I can't believe that happened. Well, you had to get it done. So if we don't, as a producer, set those constraints, let's say you're a single male that has nothing. A lot of times, call it like it is. There's some people in our office. They come in and there's just this lack of urgency to get at it, right? There's this casual pace about it because you know what? I could call that person back, but another 5 minutes don't hurt, another 2 minutes doesn't hurt, another 10 minutes doesn't hurt. And it's like this balance between it's not in the name of culture, it's just in the name of like a lack of urgency and purpose because you don't have to go home to anything. It's like I had a friend of mine that complaining about how much time he has and he has no kids. And I'm like, dude, don't complain to me. Like as Brett says, wrong friend. Like I used to think that, I had no time and then you get married and then you have less time and then you have kids and you have less time. It's just the way it works. But amazingly, you find a way to be productive through it all because you're doing it through the lens of your constraint. So take me to the moms, take me to the pace that, your best producer comes to work with. Are they laser focused? Are they balanced? Are they? I'm just curious at the pace side of the inside sales because what I witness on my best days when I used to produce versus my worst days is typically there's this rhythm and pace that I'm operating. I'm having similar conversations. I'm following the same process. I'm on to the next one. I'm closing out an application. I'm knocking it out, right? And then I'm on to the next one. I got an appointment.
I think that's a really good point. I think pace is personal if I'm thinking about it. I think for me, so looking at myself, I cannot go phone call to phone call. I have to have like a 15 to 30 minute break personally. I think that, and this might be my own curiosity, my own attention span, but I feel like listening is kind of exhausting in my own way. So when I listen, like when I'm done, I'm like a little gassed in a phone call. Even if I dominate the phone call with talking, I just feel gassed. So I need some time. So for me, I couldn't go phone call to phone call to phone call to phone call to phone call. So when I say pace is personal for our the moms per se that worked for us, there was some that really wanted to walk around the office and chat with some people. Cool, it's fine. That's fine. As long as you're like kind of booked up and you kind of book some time to go do your 15-minute coffee walk, it's cool by me. I don't care. We had some people who took walks around the office outside after each sales phone call. I think that's great. I think that's awesome. And I don't even care if you bump rap or if you listen to a podcast or if you just walk and talk to your mom or dad. I don't care. So pace is personal, but you do have to know yourself. There are some people that really should go back to back to back. Like some people have cold call dialers that they just kind of rip out and stuff like that. I admire that, but I would approach a second call and I would just be like, "Do you want it?" I have nothing to do. I need a break. So, unfortunately, my answer is pace is personal.
Yeah.
Like well, let me get this before we jet out of here because first of all you got a flight to catch and I'm getting the signal here from Zoe, which is perfect. Thank you, man, because we can go all day. The listener that's listening to this, the agent, the producer, it doesn't have to be insurance business, but that's what we know and that's your expertise. But the producer that is in the seat right now and that listens to this and says, man, I see a lot of similarities, but maybe I'm living on both sides. Some I think I could improve on. I'm vulnerable enough to know that maybe I'm doing some of these things that I could have some shifts. What is something that the wheels are turning for them? What is something that they could, as soon as they put this podcast down, that they could implement immediately and at least be on the path to improving that? We've given a lot of nuggets today on talk paths. We've given belief systems between the best in class and then those that are mediocre. But as far as the true process that we talk about, pace, all that, what is one or two things that somebody can do to immediately start the improvement process to get to that $1.5 million a year?
I'm going to go through a networker first and then an inside sales rep second. So if you're in networking, one of the more valuable things I did was I went to my referral partners, just the best, like the top 5, top 1. I don't know how far advanced you are. and ask them, when you think of me or when you think of my company, what comes to mind? What are some adjectives you would use to describe me and who I am and what I do? And the reason why you want to do that is because they're going to say nothing insurance related. Nothing insurance related. They're going to say everything about you as a person and what have you. And the more that you can fill your mind as a networker with your actual value as opposed to the value you think you bring. So if I went outside, I don't know your producers, but I bet you they would say speed or something like that, or like always available or whatever. No, it's not what the referral partner cares about ever. And if they do care about it, you got the wrong referral partner, because there will always be someone faster than you. Geico is faster than you. Sorry, it's just true. So now when you look at yourself, it's not speed, it's something different. And you might hear words like value. You might hear words like, I know you support my business, and, you beat the drum whenever you come in, or my team loves you. My team loves how you respond to emails, and like everything's just kind and cordial, and you're always respected. You don't know what it might be, but you need to hear those words, digest those words, so when you go out and network, you can tell people this is my value, not X, what I've been saying before. Now, if you're an inside producer, I do think that, not to repeat myself, but that tip earlier about objection resolution is key. Because if you're an inside producing, leads are going to keep coming, okay? But you just got to get better at getting more policies per client and getting the answer quicker. It's okay if it's a no, but you just got to get that answer quicker, because the worst inside producer has a lead from 3 weeks ago that they're calling every other day. And that person said no a long time ago mentally, just not to you. That's a problem. You have to get to the finality of a yes or a no as quick as possible. So we had a philosophy that let's get the no fast. It's fine. It's okay. Like I don't need you. What I need is an answer. And we really try to get our inside producers to get that. Yeah.
We love yeses, we love nos, we hate maybes.
Because that's what's the real killer, right? It's not getting the sale that's going to be the problem. It's the killer of my time that's going to be the problem.
Yep.
Because I know that if I have enough time, I'm going to get the sale. Because I have enough leads, I have enough opportunities, and I know that our value is good enough that if I talk to enough people, it's all good.
Got it.
But if I talk to the wrong amount of people too long, then I have a finite amount of capacity. So good, Zach. Thank you so much, man. Yeah. Boys, I don't know if you have anything else, man.
We could go on and on.
I got a tactical one. I can't help myself.
Please,
you
let's do it.
You offered 4 options to every prospect. Mm-hmm. How did you do that? Was it an email with all those 4 options?
Never.
Never.
No.
Was it a conversation with all those 4 options?
So I'll tackle that real quick, and I could go on a whole podcast about this. But when I say never, I mean never's the wrong answer, because never's never correct and always is never correct. Let me redact that. But we tried not to email quotes. And the reason being is if you email quotes, you immediately are saying, now I'm on your time. Now I'm on the other person's time. And I have the secrets here. Like, I'm saying, is it worth a 5-minute phone call, 30-second phone call, 5-hour phone call? Is it worth any amount of time to you to go over those numbers? Because I would love to go over those numbers. I'll send it to you live. That's cool by me. But we didn't like to release quotes. We liked to chat with the prospect and educate them on all forms of risk, because I am a firm believer that quotes is not education. They don't receive any value by looking and seeing dwelling $575, and then they look at other structures and it's $57,000. I don't have a $57,000 fence. This quote's off. Like, they start dreaming of things in their mind. No, I want to talk to you. I want to explain and educate you on all forms of risk, and then it's your job as the prospect to say no. That's cool by me.
That's the language you use. It's your job as the prospect to tell me no.
Probably not direct. I was more to me the inside producers, I would say. But to the client, it would be like, we're educating you on all forms of risk, because that's our job. This is your maybe first time buying a home. There are other things at bay. We got to make sure that your coverages are aligned. And do you have kids? Like, this is a different scenario per se. But my belief, personal belief, and this is why we sold it this way, is just like, everybody should have an umbrella. And I think that one of the only risks to homeownership of getting your home, staying in your home, obviously you have to pay the mortgage and there's financial stuff involved, but one of the things about insurance is you're protecting against the unseen. And as a producer, there is nothing worse than someone having a catastrophic accident and then you being like, I didn't present the flood or the umbrella. Like, I mean, you feel like I didn't do my job. all I did was collect money. And so I believe that. And it's a transfer of belief, as we're saying. You transfer that belief to your producers and you get them to feel like at Herb here and Urban Young, like if we don't like really present it, like we're disappointing the consumer. I really believe you are. And so that belief can kind of probably come through this microphone. And I just think it's real.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Incredible, Zach, man. Well, dude, the only thing better than you as an awesome sales professional is just you as a human, man. So,
buddy.
dude, I just appreciate it so much.
treat.
It's been an absolute pleasure to get a chance to kind of have these exchanges, and I just appreciate you being so open and transparent and truly with a heart to give and serve. And this chapter of your life just seems like it's such a fun one because you get to just take all this experience and really help the person that you once were. So,
Yeah.
really, really cool, man. So, well, guys, if you're listening to this and you have a heartbeat, I know you enjoyed this. I would just ask you to share the episode, and we'll leave Zach's contact information too. So, if you want to reach out to him, you're missing out. He's such an awesome dude. So, man, thank you for being here. Have an
Appreciate
amazing
you guys.
flight,
Yeah.
and
Thank
bye
you,
for
Zach.
now.
See you, man.